Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast, where we explore your hidden thoughts and desires, revealing your greatest drop the mic moments. Now, here's your host, Art Costello.
Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast. Today, David Adelson is my guest. David Adelson, his master's degree advisor, thought he should be a stand-up comic. Instead, he remained a lifelong healer, author, meditation teacher, and developer, creating 500 plus products and programs founded in consciousness and wholeness. He spent 40 plus years studying quantum physics, consciousness, unified field theory, and the best water balloon weapons available. His free Peace and Harmony program has been used to stop family squabbles, reduce customer complaints in business, and relieve stressful situations. Grab yours now to experience a peaceful and harmony in your life. Boy, could we use a whole lot of that in this world today, David. Could you kind of fill us in how this journey all started for you?
Yeah, I'm one of those people that made a conscious choice for those who understand and believe in something happening before we're born in this life, that I would come and the world was in a tenuous situation at best, and we just came to help. So I actually grew up knowing that I was here to do something, although I didn't necessarily know what it was. And I had some very clear and profound spiritual experiences and connections when I was quite young. And that's what led me here. So before I was born, my grandmother, so this is in the 50s, maybe 1950. My grandmother went to somebody who today we would call a psychic, but I don't know what they called him back then. And apparently it was this lovely woman who would just sit and have tea with you. And during the course of the conversation, they talk about the weather, and then she dropped some, interesting tidbit. And she told my grandmother, and my mother was pregnant with my older sister at the time. And she told my grandmother that several things, but that she would have a son and that the son was here to do great, wonderful things for the world, lovely things for the world. And then my older sister was born. And then my mother went to see this woman, I think maybe a year later or something. It didn't say she was related to, the previous woman, but just said to the woman that the woman had said it would be a son and it was a daughter. And the woman thought for a minute. She said, yeah, and you're going to have another daughter too, but the son is like, just his presence is so huge. I didn't see the other ones, but he's here to do wonderful things for the world. So my loving and sweet mother brought me up with, no, Jewish mother, Italian mother, like, you're going to do great things for the world. So now I have this, on my shoulders since I'm like 2.
Talk about setting expectations, boy. That's a huge one.
It's like, okay, thanks, And as I said, I had, even when I was a kid, I never saw myself as I always see myself. I've always been aware that there have been companions around who were there to support me, who weren't necessarily visible to everybody. And when I was a teenager, I started having very clear experiences, and it became very clear to me that none of my friends were having these things. And so I didn't talk about them. But I would have experiences. People would come up to me and they'd ask me questions that I had never heard anything about before. And I would give them the answer, and I would kind of watch it come from deep within. And there's no reason that I should have known that. And yet it would be the right answer. So, I'm having these experiences and life is going on. And around the time that I'm 20, I'm thinking, okay, supposed to do wonderful things for the world, still no clue what that is. It's like 20, college is going to be over soon. Shouldn't I start getting some glint? Nothing, no idea. And then I started meditating when I was 20. And I just thought, this is absolutely amazing. Went to the university that's now fully accredited, kindergarten through PhD in Iowa. When I went, they were first putting it together in California. Became a meditation teacher in 1974, taught for a while, went back to school on and off, got a couple master's degrees, didn't quite finish the second one because there was this big paper that we had to write, and instead I bought a house and had kids. But studied all this stuff, joined faculty for a while, teaching desktop publishing. And then in the mid to early 1990s, my oldest son, who was 13, came down with cancer. And we spent 10 months in and out of the hospital, and he came out fine from that. But during that time, all of a sudden, all these divine beings started showing up in my awareness in the house when I was alone, after I finished my meditation in the middle of the night. And they all just started presenting themselves. So my guru, teacher, whatever you want to say, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's the one who brought TM, Transcendental Meditation, to the West, taught, the Beatles, everybody, okay, all that stuff. In his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, he talks about how long creation is. And I won't get into it, but it's long. But he talks about how it's measured in terms of the longest lifespan of creation, which is the Divine Mother, and then on and on and on from there. And I just thought, if all these beings are showing up, can I just connect to the highest, which is Divine Mother? So I said, can I do that? And basically, since that time, I've had a pretty profound and significant connection around the clock ever since then, which has guided my life and guided the creation of all of these programs that we created. And at the time that we wrote that it was 500, it was closer to 600. I have 50 that have been created since November that I haven't even released yet. And
Wow.
What we did was we wanted very simple ways to eliminate whatever problems or suffering that people had. And we used to literally spend time. We would sit down and say, okay, what are the problems? What's causing suffering? What are the problems, and how do we eliminate that? So people feel weak, so we create programs to empower them. People feel that someone else is in charge of their life and they don't have individual freedom or empowerment, so we created programs for that. Physical discomfort, not feeling loved, not feeling like they know what they're doing. And we just created many, many of these programs in many, many simple, easy to administer ways, such as some of them are MP3s or video programs you can play in the background. You don't even have to watch them. Some of them are pieces of art or photography that you can just put on the wall, and it has an effect both on the environment and people viewing it. Some are, tinctures, drops like that you put under your tongue or something. Some are cards that are about the size of a credit card that you can put in your wallet. So we just kept creating all of these things to help people in whatever way that we could. And the interesting thing is I was spending all my time creating things. I never had any time to market them. So now I'm at a point in my life where I'm finally putting together some people to help me get these things to the world. And the Peace and Harmony program that you mentioned is our offering. You're exactly right. So many people need this. It can help prevent, squabbles in the home. It can help prevent squabbles at work between different departments or different people at work, or, customer complaints have been decreased. When we get enough people using them, crime rate has gone down in a neighborhood. And when you get enough or a more powerful unit, more even natural disasters can be affected. And the Peace and Harmony download, we want to give it away. We feel that as many people as possible should have that, and you just play it on your phone. And to get it, you just go to peaceandharmonydownload.com and stream it or download it and give it to all your friends.
Wow, that's really amazing.
The need to have closure in any given situation is sheer human nature. And when it comes to romantic relationships, this desire skyrockets. Has your previously failed relationship left you in immense pain? It's not uncommon for people to shy away from a new relationship after their first one fails miserably. The fear of the unknown makes them hide in a shell to prevent any future heartbreak. Relatable? Despite wanting to love and be loved, you can't take the plunge if your mind and heart are still locked somewhere in the past. Maybe you aren't aware of the power of releasing the past, or perhaps you don't know how to do it. Art Costello in his online course teaches the art of moving on from bad places to happier, more stable ones. This course can change your life for good, helping you beat all kinds of negativity on the road to eternal bliss. Sign up now before the gloominess gets the better of you at expectationacademy.com.
One of my philosophies is I believe in the possibility of everything.
Yes.
And everything's possible when you believe. And you and I have so much in common, because when I was 9, I don't know how much you know about my background, but at 9, I was abandoned and had to figure out life on my own. And I went to the top of the hilltop, laid on my back, and had a conversation with God and the universe. And I heard a voice after many trips up that hill. I heard a voice in me, and it just said, keep doing and just keep being good, just doing good. At 9, it scared the holy bejeebies out of me, but, and I didn't tell anybody about it for quite a while, but I believed it. I actually believed it in my subconscious and in my conscious life, and lived that way. And it's gotten me so many places. And it's just amazing when you opened up your mind to the possibilities of everything, what can happen. You got any feelings about this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I got to tell you, did you ever see the movie Millions? Danny Boyle directed it. He did the new Yesterday movie about the Beatles thing, but he did some other very big movies that I'm blanking on right now. But Millions is about this young kid, and I'm guessing he's around the same age that you're talking about. And he sees saints, and he's having conversations with saints all the time. And basically a whole lot of money shows up in his life, and he's not sure whether it's real or whether it's in this world where he's seeing saints. But there's one scene where he's talking, I'm not going to remember who it is. He's talking with some saint, and he's brushing his teeth and getting ready for bed while he's talking to the saint very casually, comfortably, like it's the most natural thing in the world. And he just says in the sweetest voice, and it's this most adorable kid ever, he just says, I just want to do good, and you just...
Wow, I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, and you just get that simple innocence of, of spirituality, of wishing well of everyone. Just wishing well. We just want to do something that, and I'm sure the 9-year-old kid, and I'm sure, when you were young, you didn't think of it in terms of blessing the world, but when we're good, that's what we do. We share the best of us.
David, I actually was very similar to you. I started feeling like I was here to do something on earth that was great. And, I went to Vietnam as a Marine, and I've lived a great life. And it wasn't until my wife passed away in 2006 from ovarian cancer that I actually was able to look back on my life and reflect. I fell apart, and I went back out on the lawn here in Austin, Texas, on our ranch, and spoke to God again and asked what was going to become of me again. And I heard a voice that just said, listen, I've given you all the tools. You just need to use them. And it reinvigorated me so much. And I started writing and really coming out of what I call this material world that I had lived in, because I was chasing the dollar and had businesses and all that kind of thing. And I started to become more spiritual. And when I did that, I have found the most happiness I've ever been in my life. And I know now this is what I was meant to do all my life.
Yeah. But the world, we do a clearing that I was at a conference in the spring, and it was all these heavy leaders in the self-improvement, in the whatever term you want to use, the growth field, all of these people. And they all had, I want to say there were 30 or 40 people there. They all had hundreds of thousands or millions of people that they influenced. They were all here doing good. And when I got there, it became apparent that they were all about 2, 3, 4 degrees off. Their compass was just a little off. And they were doing good, because if you're 3 degrees off, you're still doing 97% good. So that's pretty cool. But what I was shown at the time was that, if you leave Earth with the intent of reaching the moon, and you're 1 degree off, you will miss the moon by twice the diameter of the moon. And so I saw these people, and I just saw what would happen when they have that vision. And I'm a big believer, because of my own memories and because of other work that I've done and things that I've seen, I'm a big believer that this life is only one chapter in a longer chapter, and that there are things that happen before and after. And there's a book that I read that was one of the first books that talked about somebody dying and then being revived. And they called them near-death experiences, but technically this guy was dead for 8.5 minutes, and then they revived him. And during that time, he had an experience. He had a lot of experience. It's a very thin book, an afternoon read. It's called Return from Tomorrow by George somebody. I can't remember his last name. I want to say Mitchell or Wilson or some, but I'm going to, Mills, I can't remember. But it's on Amazon, and it's a short read. And the whole book, for the most part, all that happened to him during the 8.5 minutes, and then what happened afterwards, a little bit before and some what happened afterwards. But while he's going through what turned out to be 8.5 minutes on Earth, sounds like about 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it's like this whole big thing. He's trying to get home. Oh, he's in Texas. He's a soldier. It's 1944. He dies in Texas from allergies from the dust or something. Doesn't even make it overseas during World War II. And they revive him by a shot to the heart, which was unheard of at the time. But he's kind of semi-delirious as he's fading out, trying to get home for the holidays or for whatever reason. And his first experience is that he's just running across the fields. And then he realizes that the fields are moving by way too fast. And he realizes that he's flying. He doesn't take this into account that this is strange. But after a while, he's looking down. He goes, wait a minute, I'm trying to get home, but wait a minute, where am I? He lands. He realizes that nobody can see him and hear him. He has some experiences. He has an experience where he goes into a bar and he's watching people, and he says all the people have this thin light all around them. But when somebody passes out from being drunk, the light goes out. And then all of these dark beings jump into that person's body, that the light shielded them the rest of the time. Anyway, so that was interesting. Then he realized that he's got to get back to his body. So he races back to the hospital. But as he's approaching the hospital, which is a big military hospital with however many rooms, he suddenly realizes that he has no idea what he looks like from the outside looking in. And realizes that he's wearing this particular ring and starts racing through the hospital, finds his body. And while he's there looking at it, all of a sudden this big, bright, blinding light shows up next to him. And he says he's very aware that if he had human eyes, it would have burned his eyes out. And his tradition is Catholic, and he's been confirmed, and Lord Christ shows up. And he knows that's who it is. And Lord Christ takes him and shows him these different things. And one of the places that he takes him is to this room where there's some other beings. And when he walks in the room, his whole life in greater detail than he says, there's the greater detail than he could ever remember, all goes in front of him. And he's very aware that he's watching it, but so are these other beings, including Lord Christ standing next to him. And he's thinking, this is not coming from memory. There's no way I could have remembered that much details. And when the whole thing is done, Lord Christ looks at him and says, what did you do with your life? And he says, why are you asking me? You just showed me what, And so he's kind of fumbling, and it's Lord Christ that he wants to kind of impress the guy. So he says, I got my Eagles Boy Scout badge or something. And Lord Christ goes, that glorified you. What did you do with your life? And later on in the book, he meets this other very interesting character. In case you want to read it, or your audience wants to read it, I won't spoil it for you, but he's called Wild Bill Hickok, and he's in a concentration camp that they're clearing out. They're evacuating and healing people. He's in the medical corps at that time. But it's very interesting. But that one idea, what did you do with your life? And I'm sure something similar for you has been a guiding principle of, what's being presented? What do I know? Am I missing an opportunity to do something noble, kind, good to somebody? Which doesn't negate the fact that I get grumpy and pissed when I'm overtired and eat the wrong food or whatever. I mean, they're still human, but the overall motivation is, what can we do for others? And it sounds to me like you've been giving an opportunity to what can you do to uplift, to move, to inspire. All possibilities is a fabulous way to live.
I've done that all my life. It's been the whole part of my life that I've just lived. I've always cared deeply about other people, more so than myself. I'm selfless. I've been told by psychologists and psychiatrists that I worked with, when I was in those fields, that they had never run into anybody that was so egoless. I don't do things for myself. I'd give the shirt off my back to anyone. If somebody asks for me for help, I help. I figure it out. I just go and get things done.
Yeah, it's a marvelous way to be, and it's a great asset to humanity to have people like that. I want to get back to the story. So I'm at this event with these 40 people, and I become aware that they're just 3 degrees off, or 2 or 4 or whatever. And I realize that they're doing fine. And from the earth perspective, somebody who was there said, the way that he works his clients is, you find yourself in the front row at a funeral and they're reading the eulogy and it's your eulogy. And what do you want them to say? But just as you just described, egoless, we don't care what humans say. What we care about is, if Lord Christ or Shiva or Muhammad or whatever aspect of the divine that resonate with us, Mother Mary, Divine Mother, whatever, that when they look at it, I was at an event last week and somebody referenced a book called Who Do You Want to Be a Hero To? And my response, and I suspect yours would be similar, and I suspect some of your listeners would be, God. That's who I want to be a hero to. Not that God needs a hero, or a Divine Mother, but the idea that I want to do something that is far beyond, what people see. So let me just finish this. The clearing that we did for these people, I was given the opportunity to get on stage for 15, 20 minutes. And the person who invited me said, I want you to give them a lot of energy and get them all, revved up. And I said, not what they need. If they don't get clear and in alignment and they're 3 degrees off, the world will think they did something fine. But when they get out, when they have this thing or whatever happens to them at the end, no one else is going to pass judgment on them, but they'll say, oh man, if I was just this much, I could have done this. So we did a clearing, and the words that we used, that I was guided to use, were very precise. And it was, we want to remind you of who you are and what you're here to do, which you knew when you were young, before you learned what the world expected of you, when you knew superpowers and the tooth fairy were real. Isn't that fabulous?
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so awesome. I mean, I hope people really will actually run this back a few clicks and they'll listen to that again, because that's wisdom.
Yeah, because people knew when they were young. And I'm talking about this specifically because this is what you talk about. You did all this business stuff and you did, all the money and all the everything, which is legitimate, but that's what the world expected of you. And when you were released from the grip of that, you allowed yourself to get back and sync who you are and what you're here to do. And one of the things that I like to point out, and I'm not being malicious here, I'm just pointing out the reality of the situation is, however we believe that people evolved, when we look back at the history of the last 1,000 years or 2,000 years or so, those people who are making the decisions and determining what the world expects from you are exempt from those. They're the lords of the manor, they're the heads of the spiritual organization. And again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing because, we've gotten to a wonderful place in the world, but the church taught that your rewards would be in heaven and you should sacrifice your life here. And while they're saying that, they're building up the wealthiest organization on the planet. Mm-hmm. Okay, and wearing rings and jewels and gold and robes of woven silver or whatever it is. And yet they're telling the masses that you should put off your rewards and live in penance and all of this. And you look at the lords of the manor who say, I'll protect you and your family, but I'm the one who has, 3 cooks and servants and all of this, and you're sleeping with the pigs. So again, and I'm not judgmental about it. We evolved to where we are today. So something good has come out of it. But what we're finding right now, particularly with the younger generation, is they're very aware that a lot of the whatever is being propagated, they're aware that it doesn't pay off. So for instance, you and I were taught, get a good job, go to college, get a good job, make a good living, all of this, and get in business and build a successful business. And the younger generation is saying, yeah, but those businesses that you built are literally destroying the planet. I don't know if I have kids, if they will be able to breathe. And that's a very real thing to them. So they're throwing out a lot of the ideas that have been proposed for a long time, which I think is brilliant. They really need to evaluate themselves. What are you here to do? Never forget, don't buy into what the world expects of you. Stay believing in all possibilities. Stay believing that superpowers are real. Stay believing that the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus or whatever it is real.
Has anyone ever inspired you to discover a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled you? It is a magical experience, isn't it? Inspiration is indeed very powerful, yet it's often undermined. It can lift you from the ground to the sky in no time. Have you ever thought about returning the favor by inspiring the people around you? If you don't think you have it in you, we have good news for you. Art Costello's online course has everything you need to learn to supercharge yourself and shape your character into a powerful personality. Get ready to discover your strengths and unleash the creativity within. Don't believe it? Check it out yourself by signing up for this life-changing course at expectationacademy.com. That's expectationacademy.com.
You need to read my book, Expectation Therapy.
I will.
You know why? Because when I had lost my wife and I lost all my assets, basically, and had to really start examining myself, this thought came over to me, and I looked back and reflected on my life, and I realized that my expectations have always been driven what drives me. And I believe that the expectations that the world, society, religion, politics, all of those expectations are what corrupts us.
Yeah.
It's what corrupts us. But what is important is people have lost the fact that your self-expectations are what drive you. It's where your creativity lies, all that. And I believe that there's a DNA component to it. I believe that it's a seed that's implanted in each and every one of us. And that's why advertisers, religion, schools, all of those learn very early on. If they can control the expectations of the masses, they control the people.
Yeah, what the world expects of you. Just
exactly.
What the world expects of you versus what you innately know to be true. Or if you're allowed to develop your own discernment, you can stay empowered within yourself. One of the things that we're working towards is a world of fully empowered beings of great diversity. We don't want a world of everybody's the same. We want a world where, the different cultures maintain all the best that they have, because who doesn't like, Chinese food, Indian food, Mexican food, Italian food, hot dogs. I mean, all of these different types of food all add to our joy of life. So it's not like we don't want everybody to take all of these types of food and throw them in big hot pots, and that's what we eat every single meal the rest of our life. Nobody wants that.
That's why the power of believing in everything, the possibilities of everything, because when you do that, you become empowered in sucking in all the experiences that other people share with you and the other people have. That's why I love talking on these podcasts with people like you, because it gives me a much broader sense of what's possible in this world. And I suck it in, and it just makes me a better, smarter person, for lack of better words, I guess, but it broadens my knowledge base. And that's what we need in this world. People who have not so concentrated on everything around them, but are more concentrated in why they're here. What is the creative thing that they're supposed to be doing? What is their contribution to this world? Because I will guarantee you this, every single human being on this face has something to offer us.
Yeah. And and different people have different fields of influence. Some people, what they offer is their immediate family and friends. And some people offer, the community. And then some people, the neighborhood, the community, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have the great people who, we hear about, decades after they passed away and what they've done for the world. And it all comes back to just allowing, I want to just say all possibilities, allowing the belief that just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it can't happen. So, we really want to think, we don't want to squelch dreams. We don't want to squelch somebody, what somebody says, it's always impossible until somebody does it,
Yeah, those are words that I don't use. Can't, impossible. Those are all in our heads. Those are what limit us.
Yeah, and I don't use them either. When somebody, my personal belief is that anything is possible and anything means anything. And I know from personal experience. So here's an example that I'll share with you. I have this video clip of one of the space shuttles launching from Cape Canaveral or whatever it's called these days. And it's exquisite, beautiful footage. Blue sky, they're crystal clear. It's done by some major networks or NASA or somebody's, camera that's way more expensive than anything I could ever own, And it takes off and the flames are gorgeous red and orange and yellow and it goes up and it's just this incredibly majestic thing. And then some part falls off and the other rockets come into play and everything. And it goes up and it goes up and it goes up. And it's gorgeous. It's visually beautiful, but it is in complete violation of natural law. Millions of gallons of fuel and oxygen and nitrogen or hydrogen or whatever it is are used to do this, okay? But if I want to drop a pen, it's the simplest thing in the world for me to drop something. So if I can take my hand and just do it using the same slight amount of energy that it takes to push something down, to push something up, it's a completely different way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. So all of the ways that a rocket works right now is 183 or 5 or I don't know degrees opposite of the way that nature works. I don't know have you ever heard of the Coral Castle in Florida?
I've heard of it. I've not been there.
Yeah, I haven't been there either. And I lived in Florida for a while, but it was too far for me to go to. But if you don't mind, I'm going to share with your audience so they know the story behind it. I'm thinking it was the 1920s, could have been the 40s or something. This guy came over from Poland or one of those countries where a lot of brilliant people like Tesla and other people came from. And he started building this castle out of coral. And I'm talking 2-ton blocks of coral. And he did it by himself at night in the dark without any pieces of huge equipment. And partway through his building it, he was in some kind of deserted part of Florida. Partway through, somebody bought land, what he felt was too close to his. So he bought another piece of land 10 miles away and then moved all these blocks of coral the 10 miles by himself and then built this castle that's now a tourist thing that you can go to. And it's built of these blocks of 2 tons of coral that this man did by himself without pulleys and cranes or anything like that. And he did it totally in the dark, fenced in, nobody could see what he did. And when somebody asked him about it, he just said, science has it completely wrong. It's totally simple. So when you look at this and you think about how the best developments, the best scientific technologies that have advanced us the most have been working with the laws of nature rather than opposed to them, we can see that there can be, whether we call them quantum or unified field or whatever, that there are solutions that we have never dreamed of that will solve the problems in this world on a completely different level than the problem exists. So there are some very interesting technologies that I've been aware of for a long time that have not yet appeared on the planet or have not been allowed to because the human race wasn't ready for them. But there are technologies that will take a landfill and you use these certain frequencies. So landfills where they're dumping all the garbage, and it's horrible and toxic and it stinks and all of this. And you shoot this particular set of frequencies at it. And for however long you do it, and a week later, you have a fully organic forest there. And there are things that you can do to clean up oil spills in the Gulf or toxic things floating in the lakes, rivers, streams, oceans, whatever. That so many simple things, the solutions to all of our problems that we perceive of as problems are actually they're incredibly simple and incredibly profound. And they'll be coming because the people who believe in all possibilities are going to realize the way you get rid of the trash is not by raking up the trash. There's another way, there's another technology that is much more profound and much simpler. And right now what we're doing is we're going through, whether you call it a phase transition or a big shift on the planet, where we're literally moving from not just a theory, but the energies are different. We're moving from Newtonian-based physics, which is all about cause and effect. Mm-hmm. A body in motion tends to remain in motion until acted upon by an outside force, which means that if you want to get to Y, you have to go through X. Okay? And we're changing that to a world that's quantum unified field physics-based. And in quantum physics and unified field, you tickle the absolute way over here on the left, and it laughs way over here on the right, maybe in Venezuela. There's no relation between the two. And from quantum physics, for no reason whatsoever, a photon pops up out of existence, moves backwards in time, and splits apart. Okay, all kinds of different things. And the advantage of that is that we can now go directly from what we want to create, the solution to a problem or an experience, and not worry about, not have to figure out how do I do it, but this is what I want. And then we get it. When we go to a restaurant and they hand us the menu, and we can even order off the menu, we say, we'd like this. And they say, fine, and they walk away. We don't sit there figuring out how they're going to get it, where they're going to buy that, what they're going to do. We just sit there and wait, and then 5 minutes, 20 minutes later, whatever it is, somebody comes and exactly what we want shows up. Why can't that happen in other areas of life as well? And that's the world that we're starting to move into, where we stop getting in our way by trying to figure out how to solve it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. You know what my next book is going to be titled?
I can't wait to hear.
Quantum Expectations.
Very good. Very good. So tell me a little bit about what you're thinking to put in there.
Well, actually, when I was 9 years old, I believe that when I went up to that hilltop and I had that conversation, that I started to put out vibrations into the universe. And I have been fortunate enough to live the life aware of it and cognizant of it. And I've watched it come around full circle to what I am doing today, which is put here on earth to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing the research on it now to quantify it.
Don't know which direction you want your life to take? Are you sinking deep down into the pit of uncertainties day by day? So, what's the secret to leading a happy, satisfied life? It's taking matters into your own hands. But what if the matters in question are a total blur? Art Costello's Expectation Academy course aims to tell you exactly how you can get some clarity in your life. This course can be your savior on your journey to reinventing yourself. While you certainly can't plan your whole future ahead, you can definitely control twists and turns your life takes. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for this course now at expectationacademy.com. Get a chance to broaden your horizons and add meaning to your life. That's expectationacademy.com.
It's very exciting when we start thinking. And by the way, I kind of want to congratulate you. I suspect you're wise enough to not think of this, but I want to make sure that you don't feel that all the time from when you were 9 and then having the wife and all of that until she passed away. We don't want you to think that was a waste of time. We want you to be very aware that there were certain things that were being fulfilled, and the world wasn't in a position to hear what you were ready to offer. A lot of us got here and had to twiddle our thumbs for 30, 40 years before we could start talking.
You're bringing goosebumps to me because that's my whole outlook on everything has been that way. And I believe that my time has come.
Yeah.
When I was 9 years old and promised that my time would come, because I heard that, my time has come.
Yeah.
My time has come. My purpose is going to be served on earth now. And I'm so anxious to see where it goes. You know what I mean? It's my job to do it, to fulfill it.
Right. And your job is to remind everybody, if you don't mind, that to stop limiting themselves and be aware that anything they can dream of is possible, and not be concerned with the how, why, where, when. Just want it. We don't care why. A little kid who wants something, they just go, I want this. And the parent's aware of the money, or it's too sugary, or it's this or that. And the parent's aware of all these reasons. Now the kid has no clue. And not having a clue just says, I just want it. And then the parents go, okay, fine, here you go. And we want to get back to that innocent stage where what we want is the best life that exemplifies who we are in the eyes of the divine, whether we express it that way or not. We all want to do something that doesn't cause us harm. We at least don't want to hurt ourselves. And so some of the choices that we make, we need to be aware of. If I do this and I harm someone else, I'm going to be harming me, so I don't want to do that. And then there are a lot of people who are just staunch, we use the term well-wishers of the world, well-wishers of humanity. And they have been being stifled for centuries, maybe millennium. And we want them, and part of your job is to inspire them to recognize that now is their time to step forward and stand up for what they believe in, which is simply a quality of life that's worthy of a child of the divine. It's worthy of a child of God. That's who you are if you're human, and you should have a life worth living, which includes joy and love and purpose and fun and good experiences, and should not be experienced as I'm not worthy of anything. Everybody doesn't want to be a multimillionaire. There's a lot of responsibility with that, but everybody wants a meal when it's time for a meal. And there's literally no reason right now, aside from imbalances in the thinking of certain people, that anyone on the planet gets sick or misses a meal or is thirsty or doesn't have good water or whatever it is, because we already have solutions to almost everything, except some people aren't sharing.
Well, governments get in the way, and all these worldly stuff that goes on that I think that inhibits people from doing, because I think there's a large enough group of us in the world.
Exactly.
We could change the world. It's surmounting these obstacles. But you've brought up a really good point, is I can't let any of that stop me.
Yeah.
And I won't let it stop me.
And the thing is that we're not looking for any kind of revolution. We're just looking for, hey, does this serve you right now in this moment?
Peace and harmony.
Peace and harmony. And play that. Here's some things I would love to see. I would love to see and I don't know, we have some, obviously I have to make a living too. So we're giving away the free ones, and great. I'd love to give away, I can't even tell you the number that I'd love to give away. It's huge. But I figure that of that, some people are going to want something a little more powerful. And so we have something, $50, $125, and then all the way up to, $10,000, $20,000 for really powerful units for people who want them. And people have used those higher units to prevent a hurricane from landing in Florida, to put off tornadoes in Oklahoma, to prevent forest fires in Texas from reaching the area in Austin, interestingly enough, and have crime rate go down in the areas. We have a very low cost, which is called I Can Help unit, which somebody put in their apartment. And in their building, the first thing they noticed is the people upstairs stopped stomping around. And the second thing they notice is after they've been running it for a month or two, that as you approach the apartment building, you just felt calm and comfortable. And that's it. It's just a small unit. I think that one was maybe $500 or something, and real simple. And you just plug it in and you do it. So we have these bigger units, but I keep thinking, why aren't we running this in schools to make sure that there's no of these gun violent things happening? Why aren't we running it in businesses to make sure that the businesses, and we've had experiences with businesses and what they've noticed in terms of, disharmony between departments at meetings have disappeared, squabbles have gone by, fewer customer complaints. And why not run it in the whole business? Why not run it in prisons? Why not run it? And then we have a different version maybe for hospitals and stuff. Why not run it on the back of every podcast that you make? Why not put it on the back of every TV show, movie, every broadcast everywhere, and just inundate the planet with this kind of energy? And all it will do is it will have an amazing effect to generate peace and harmony, which is not the same as stupor. You're still alert, you're still you, it's just you're not misfiring. You're not using your energy to create something you don't want. Your energy is now free to experience what you do want, which is entirely up to you. This isn't subliminal anything. This is the quantum frequency of peace and harmony. And any of your listeners and their friends, we'd love to start a movement and just get, millions of these out very quickly, because we think it would make a huge a huge difference. And then what happens if you play this version where the lawmakers are trying to make laws?
Yeah.
Talk about a place where there's a lot of squabbling for, no reason. So
yeah, we could surround Washington, D.C. with it. And it's beautiful. That is the world that we all seek. I think we all seek it. We just don't know how to get there. So maybe that's what our job is, David, to teach the world how to get there.
And to inspire them to want it, and that it is really, truly possible if you want it. And you started with this. If we, and you use the term belief, but if we understand, if we know, if it's unshakably in our core of who we are, people are amazing. And people can live, you take the greatest things that people have done throughout time, and maybe we're not that great person. Maybe I'm not Gandhi and I couldn't stand up to that, or I'm not Sir Hillary, whatever his name was, who climbed Mount Everest. But there's something about the nobility of that person, about each of these people, Martin Luther King Jr. There's something about all of these that resides in all of us. And I'm not saying that everybody should rise up and be powerful, but everybody should rise up and at least respect themselves, love themselves, appreciate themselves, and see that they're worthy of having a comfortable life that they can that they should enjoy, that should be fulfilling. And it should be nice. It should be good. It should have dignity.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with, in physics, the formula for expectation? Have you ever seen it?
I haven't, no.
I took that formula, and that's how I formed expectation therapy. I took that formula and turned it into a behavioral formula. And when I spoke at Harvard, the faculty there was just intrigued with how I had come about doing that. And, and I just said, I just did it. I just did it because basically what I did, it's very simple, but I love what you said about keeping things simple and keeping them understandable in that, because expectation therapy is the most simple formula you've ever seen for changing your life. It's identify, clarify, and solidify with a written plan, and it's so simple, but people can do it. I believe that our expectations, our self-expectations, are the most important asset we have. And every child, if we could teach them how to manage their expectations, they would be much more suited for happiness coming into their life. Yeah. And it's just amazing. And I did an interview a couple of days ago, and the man that I did the interview, he said, your take on expectations is so unique and so different. How did you get there? And I just said, 72 years of life. I was born in 47, David, so we're pretty close to the same. But I just lived it. And then had the foresight to look back on my life when I really needed it the most, to rely on it and then just start moving. Becoming a doer to me is so important, because so many people talk about it, but don't take the action steps to make things happen. And that, we have epiphanies, we have expectations, and then we have action to bring it to fruition.
Yes, that's perfect. I know we're squeezing in on time. I have one other gift I'd like to give your audience, if I may.
Absolutely, David.
We talked about being in alignment, and we created this quiz to help people to see where they are. And then based on their responses, we give them some guidance to help them get more in alignment. And it's a real simple quiz, kind of fun. And it's at takethisquiznow.com. And I'd like to encourage people to take advantage of that. Takethisquiznow.com, because we all have some level of purpose, whatever it is. And the more we're in alignment with that, the easier our life can be and the more fulfilled we can be. So,
yeah. I think that you and I need to hook up a little bit, and maybe I can promote some of these things, not only on my podcast, but on my website.
Okay.
And direct people there, because, we're in such alignment, you and I, on our thought avenues and paths, that I think that it's very in alignment and congruent to what we're trying to accomplish. I think that's a good thing. Also, in wrapping this up, I want you to give us some last words, and then I'll take us out of there. But I want everybody to know that all the things that David has talked about today will be in the show notes, so you can find them and hook up with David. But David, I want you to leave us with some parting thoughts and feelings. And you've got half an hour to do it. So.
As near as I can tell, I have minus 20 seconds. But here's what I want your people to walk away with. All possibilities is real. When you get in alignment with yourself, when you really know and allow yourself to be who you truly are. When you stop trying to fit in and you allow your expression, you allow yourself to be a beautiful flower that adds to the beauty of the garden. And I would just encourage everyone who's listening to become that beautiful embodiment of the best of them that they would like to be in whatever areas they want to excel in, and whatever areas they want to not excel in are perfectly valid. We don't have to get it all right. We just have to do that which warms our heart and fulfills us. And that's a life worth living.
Beautiful words from a beautiful human being. No other way to put it. We've been graced with your knowledge, your gifts today, and it means the world to me. I mean, I can't wait to do this again with you.
Oh, that's very exciting. I would love to do it as well. I want to thank you so much for having me and for giving me the opportunity to share this with so many people. I think we're coming to an amazing time in this world, and I am so stoked about it.
I am too. And with those words, we'll say goodbye. Everybody knows where they can find me at expectationtherapy.com, and I'll let Heather White take us out of here.
Thanks for listening to the show. Drop us your comments and questions with what you want answered on the show. You can subscribe on iTunes and Binge Network. You can also get more information on the website, expectationtherapy.com.